As we look beyond the headlines tonight, President Obama is expected to announce a plan tomorrow to impose fees on this country's largest financial firms in an effort to recover shortfalls from government bailouts of banks and other companies. Many of those firms are once again making huge profits. The idea of fees and taxes isn't limited to this country alone. For example, Britain and France are imposing some hefty one-time taxes on bankers' bonuses. And to find out more about how they plan to impose these taxes, we're joined by Andrew Clark. He is the US business correspondent for the United Kingdom's The Guardian newspaper and is based here in New York. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme.
It's a pleasure.
So what exactly have Britain and France done to try to limit bankers' bonuses?
Well, they've imposed a one-off tax of 50% on any bonuses of more than around $40,000. And the reason is twofold. It's partly to try and claw back some of the gut-wrenchingly expensive bailouts that have had to be made to rescue high street banks. And it's partly also to a response to public outrage at just how much these people are earning in the middle of a recession and during a period in which irresponsible risks have been taken.
But are they likely to raise a huge amount of money? It's a one-off tax, so it might be imposed this year, but if somebody makes a bonus that's double what they earn this year, they might not be taxed on it.
Well, indeed, it is a one-off tax, and the initial estimate as to how much it would raise in the UK was £550 million, which is not an enormous amount of money. In fact, that's actually gone up bizarrely because the banks have not cut bonuses, so more bonuses than expected are being paid out, and therefore the amount being raised has gone up to several billion. But as you said, it is a one-off, and it's intended to recoup money, and it's intended for a specific situation rather than an ongoing situation.
Right, so you're saying that it's been popular with the general public at large, but what about the banks? How have they received it?
Well, the banks have had a tantrum. I mean, several of them have threatened to move staff overseas. Goldman Sachs has talked about relocating people in other countries. And a showdown really is happening with the government. Britain's Treasury Minister has been very firm on this. Alistair Darling has said to bankers, you know, the test is you need to be able to look your next door neighbour in the eye and say what I'm doing is worth the money that I'm being paid.
What kinds of other measures are also on the table? I mean, there was some talk about a Tobin tax, for example. What's that? Indeed.
The British Prime Minister and several other European leaders are quite keen on the idea of a tax on financial transactions, things like exchange rate speculation or derivatives trading, anything like that. You would impose a very tiny tax and just take a share of that for the Treasury, and that's partly a revenue-raising initiative, and it's partly also intended to reduce risk and reduce speculation.
And what about the United States? Do you think that a tax on bonuses will be imposed here?
It seems very unlikely. There doesn't seem to be the political will to do it. And also, you could perhaps argue that America's a more aspirational society, and although there is discontent about the size of these bonuses, a lot of people look at Wall Street and say, well, I wish I was one of them rather than I hate them.
OK, Andrew Clark, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.